guys, Nichola from the Thirlmere Deacon Dubai office, giving you a bit of a 2020 roundup and giving you a bit of an insight into what our investors are thinking and saying for the 2021 property investment market. Now, I've been calling round my clients this week, finding out what they did in 2020, whether it was through us, whether they bought through another developer, maybe they bought something on the open market, finding out how their portfolios are looking towards the end of the year and to see what their plans are for 2021. And there does seem to be quite a common consensus going into the 2021, the new year, amongst all my investors, and that's certainly investors are becoming a lot more open-minded, I think, in terms of what they want to buy. I think this year has shown that, any investment can be turned on its head almost instantly, and the best way you can safeguard your investment is by purchasing something in a very good location where there's very, very strong rental demand, strong tenant demand, and also somewhere which is easily accessible to other parts of the UK. So, whilst back in 2019 the student accommodation market was absolutely booming, that commercial asset part of our industry was booming. You got the apart hotels, student accommodation, perhaps some care home investments. They were doing very, very well, but they are perhaps a little bit more high risk than the residential market, and you do really narrow down your tenant market when you're trying to rent out those types of investments. So coming into 2020, my investors have really seen that the residential investment market, your 1 and 2 bed apartments, city centre, surrounding the city centre, or perhaps even just the suburbs, of the city centre, the Wolverhamptons of Birmingham, sort of Bracknell and Slough outside of London, are the best and the most safest investments that you can make. We've all seen this year with COVID-19, we've all been stuck at home. It's been an unfortunate circumstance, but people are always going to need somewhere to live, and even during a global pandemic, we're all stuck at home, and that's something is what I've been speaking to perhaps some of my newer investors this year. They've been investing into cryptocurrencies, perhaps oil, gas, and one thing that I do say to my new investors is that property is not a commodity, and people are always going to have somewhere to live. And just look at the pure, the supply and demand crisis that is in the UK housing market. They're not building enough homes. There aren't enough places for people to live. There's a growing population. There's a growing demand for the education centre. So my new and my existing investors are all a lot more open-minded this year, and going into next year, they're saying, Nichola, we want residential, we want those 1 and those 2 beds, we want those apartments, we want city centre locations, we want to invest into new markets. Many of my investors have got their Birminghams, their Manchesters, their Liverpools, but they haven't yet explored those commuter cities and those commuter towns that surround those large areas. So going into 2021, what I'll be working with my investors is on expanding and diversifying their portfolios. So looking into slightly more regeneration areas, so areas that still have an awful lot of internal investment to come. So over the next 5 to 10 years, my investors are going to see quite a lot of capital growth, and also working with my new investors at starting their portfolios. And I think this year is going to be a very, very big year for those commuter towns that surround our big cities. Like I said, our Birminghams, our Manchesters, our Liverpools, London, those areas where we are seeing people are wanting to rent and then commute into the bigger cities. So 2021 projections, I think investors are going to be going for the 1 and 2 beds, city centre locations, or commuter town locations, and just being really open-minded with what they're looking to buy. And we're also seeing investors, in the last 2 weeks of the year, saying that that they felt that they've had such a good success in 2020 that they're going to get some of their friends and their family on board next year. So we're hoping for a very successful year, and I look forward to working with you all again in 2021.